Dick, a welcome addition to join you in the PDC Hall of Fame. Our chairman, Barry Hearn, being inducted in 2021, somebody that you've had 30 odd years of knowing through darts, and someone I'm sure you'll see it as worthy recognition for the impact that he's had on the sport. I do.
I mean, what can you say? I've known Barry actually about 40 years. I first met Barry in about 1979, 1980. I just started managing Eric Bristow and a few of the other players. And Barry had just got, I think, with Steve Davis and snooker and so the darts and snooker were on a sort of parallel path upwards. And I used to bump into Barry, with or without Steve, at various television stations, and specifically Thames Television, because I'd put together the Crafty Cockney Classic with Eric. And Barry had been there doing some stuff with Steve and snooker. And Bob Burrows was head of sport at Thames at that time. And Bob was used to have the odd luncheon, liquid luncheon, and with a few bits of food to help you stay slightly sober. And I used to bump into Barry there, and it was I think it was out of Teddington. And so that's where I really got to know Barry on a friendly basis, although we weren't involved in it from a business sense, but we were on parallel paths, although I think Barry's rocket went up far higher than mine did. Really, you can fast forward then to sort of 1992, when we formed the WDC, which then became the PDC. We were at the Circus Tavern in Purfleet, and Barry appeared backstage with Roger Moody, who was obviously one of the top boys of sports administration at Sky. And Barry came out with the immortal, bounced into the players' room and rubbing his hands, and came out with the immortal phrase, "Boys, I smell money." And that's always stuck with me. I know it stuck with dear old Tommy Cox. I don't think Tommy and I smelt it at that time, but certainly Barry did. And it transpired very soon after that. The Matchroom with Barry, of course, took care of our foreign sales. We'd signed a 5-year deal with Sky, which was for UK rights. And there we were with our foreign rights, with not a lot of idea of what we would have, who would sell them for us. And Barry, with Matchroom Television, they sold our foreign rights. And that's how Barry started to become embedded with the PDC. We would have regular meetings. I remember going over to the dear old offices in Romford for a cup of tea and listen to Barry give forth about this and that and what happened. And foreign sales went well, and it was a welcome addition to our income. Because, you know, things weren't great. We were fighting a court case at the time, which cost a lot of money. And Barry was very supportive of that, and always said, if you need any help, either with advice or, financial, come and talk to me. And so, we've always had a very cordial, and I personally had a very cordial relationship with Barry. And it was when we got to 2000 and we won the court case and the PDC was doing okay, that the board of the PDC decided that we'd been reasonably bright to get it thus far, but if we were really bright, it would be good if we brought in some seriously good people. And Barry had always said to me, if there's ever a chance I can buy into the PDC, let me know. And that's at a meeting in Knightsbridge, I think it was, with Marcus Robertson. We met with Barry for lunch, and the result of that meeting was he was going to buy into the PDC. And we said, and Marcus, rather than me, said, well, would you like to be chairman? And that was the start of where really the PDC was liftoff, with Barry getting involved, realignment of our financial situation, and it's just, you've seen where it is today. I never believed, and I don't think Barry did, that it would be as big as it's become. I think one of the big catalysts, which again was Barry's idea, was Premier League. I never believed. I think Barry's idea was we would just go to big pubs or small leisure centres, which we did in the first year. But since then, as you know, and when it just became, well, let's see if we can go to a small arena, or let's see if we can go to a big arena, and we would continue to fill them. I mean, that was unbelievable for me. I mean, I'd done those arenas when I'd been in the music business, but to do them with darts was just almost a nonsense, but a lovely nonsense. And I'd been backstage with Barry at some of the bigger arenas like Liverpool, and you just sort of had to scratch yourself that the darts have become this big. And that's down to Barry, because I don't think any of the board would ever have thought that could fill, or the sport could fill arenas. And I was event director at that time, and I can remember going around and I remember once I'd been seeing a small arena in Dublin, and then gone past the arena that we would subsequently go into. And I remember going past that arena thinking, nah, we'd never fill that. And we have. So yeah, it's been about, not a fairy tale, but it's just been, which is down to Barry. One is business acumen, which is invaluable, but more than anything, it's his enthusiasm for the sport. I can understand people getting involved from a business point of view, but to be a fan and to be that enthusiastic, Barry doesn't manufacture that. He is enthusiastic. And I mean, I remember either you or somebody telling me that Barry would go fishing, but would be working out the rankings at the same time as the results came in from you. I don't even do that. And so, yeah, that it's the enthusiasm, which is infectious, his vision. So, he's a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. Who else would you if you were asking who should be in the Hall of Fame, and what does it mean, the Hall of Fame? It's people who've been instrumental in bringing the game into its worldwide recognition. And obviously Barry's, number one with a bullet, really, as far as that's concerned.
And to look back to that lunch that you had back in Knightsbridge back in 2000, 2001, 20 years ago, to then fast forward to, looking at doing Las Vegas, going to Australia, New Zealand,
yeah,
the Far East, the way the game's gone since then. Did you ever, believe that global expansion was possible?
I wanted it to be, because I've always thought that eventually, and maybe we're there now, we will get to a saturation point in the United Kingdom. So if you wanted the game to grow, it had to be outside the UK, because there's a big wide world out there. The game has always been around in America. I remember going with Eric and Maureen Flowers to the Queen Mary in Los Angeles and to the US Open, and that would have been in the early 80s. And Bullseye magazine was around then, so you always knew it was there. But it's such a vast country, and it will take such a huge effort to break the sport across America, and that's why I'm pleased that people, that companies like DAZN are going to be there, hopefully, for us. But to break it in China, Australia, I understand, because it's part of the old empire, and Canada, English-speaking countries, I get, and that's perhaps easier because there's a memory of darts. But to do what we've done in Germany and in Europe and in Eastern Europe, and maybe South America is the toughest nut to crack, but everywhere else I think is eminently feasible. Which I'd never have dreamt of that when dear old Tom and I were battering down doors and arguing with the BDO. No, I think we only ever promised the players back then, the dear old ones who fled with Tommy and I, that we would endeavour to get the game back to where it was. Well, I think that promise has been more than delivered. So yeah, and it wouldn't have happened without Barry. I'm convinced of that.
And the news of the Hall of Fame follows hot on the heels. The Queen beat us to it by giving Barry an OBE.
I know, it's been quite a year for him, isn't it?
But that just shows the impact that he's had across a range of sports as well. We're lucky enough to work with him on darts, but you look at snooker, boxing, all the other sports that Matchroom work with, and the impact that Barry had over that period.
Yeah, and Matchroom is a company, a global company, and and then Barry, has gone to a lot of what one time were fringe sports, but I think, and I know at one time he did mention to me he looked at cricket, which I don't regard as a fringe sport, it's one of my favourite sports. But most sports need to kick up the backside at some point. And Barry's seen that, and he does it well, and he does it honestly, and it's that's part of Barry that a lot of people don't see is he's a straight shooter and is a hard dealer, but he's a straight dealer. You work for Matchroom, and you don't see many people leave Matchroom, which to me is a mark of a company that people like to work for, and they're honest brokers, which is great, because we are in a business where there ain't many honest brokers.
And just finally, Dick, on a personal level for you, obviously you had a great career with the PDC. You've probably been 7 or 8 years now into retirement, I think. And do you look back with fond memories on your time with the PDC?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was certainly nothing I'd ever envisaged doing. I never envisaged getting involved with darts. I mean, I've been in the music industry since I left school, and that was pure accident that I got involved in darts with Eric. I had an agency, and we booked him into one of our clubs, and they were queuing around the door. We couldn't believe it. So that was probably our we smell money moment, because of Eric. Eric was box office from the get-go, and this is back in 1980. I think very fondly of Eric. He became a very close friend. And as they say, make your manager your friend, don't make your friend your manager.
But yeah, I mean, it's funny that some people may know that you were in a number one hit band, but back in the 60s, ended up creating a number one hit sport as well. So plenty to look back on over the career.
Yes, you sort of got to pinch yourself, really. The band with the music part was just a great experience. I mean, playing in a hit band is an excuse to never grow up, which is great. And my wife will probably say I still haven't ever grown up. And then I was an agent, and we looked after hit bands like Heatwave, Jimmy James and the Vagabonds, and we toured Stylistics and people like this is through the funky days of the 70s. And then Eric landed on our doorstep, and darts hasn't left my doorstep since, basically.